negotiation from 4 to 5 every Wednesday down at the Workforce Solutions office. But I'm making this presentation somewhat different from that. So those of you who have gone through that, I didn't want to just duplicate what you've heard. A big chunk of what I'm going to be talking about comes from this little book, 60 Seconds and You're Hired. Next week I'll bring a bunch of these to give out as door prizes. But it was a little bit of this is old, but most of it is right on target. And then I also found, this is kind of a cool site. I printed up it's a huge number of pages. It is 78 pages of this little website. You can go into iwillteachyoutoberich.com. I kind of like the sound of that. And you will meet this blogger called Ramit Sethi, R-A-M-I-T-S-E-T-H-I. And anyway, so what's cool about this particular page that I printed out is they have some videos. Too long to show here. One is 15 minutes, one is 10 minutes, and then the third one I've never been able to access. But it talks a little bit about, here's what you say. You can buy his book that has scripts on salary negotiation. I've just passed out another little script thing. But anyway, this is a cool site in case any of you want to use it. But most of what I'm going to talk to you about is coming from 60 Seconds and You're Hired. I've titled this More Please, just because that's what you always want. Even when an offer sounds pretty good, you still can probably negotiate more. Everybody has heard this oft-quoted statistic that women in general make 23% less than men, often doing the very same job. Everybody knows that. But did you know that often that disparity is caused by the fact that women don't negotiate very well? Very often they don't negotiate at all. They're grateful to have the little pittance that is offered to them initially, and they want to please, and they don't want to say, oh, it's inadequate, I need more. It's just not our way. But I encourage you all to at least get comfortable with the idea that the biggest raises come with a new job, not a raise just because you've been working there for a while. And, I forgot, I don't know where it is. Almost always when an offer is made, there is still money on the table. Let me say that again. Almost always, and it's going to come up on a screen. I just have it in a strange order. Almost always, when an offer is made, there is still money on the table. And in order to get at that money, you have to do two things. You have to ask for it, and you have to explain why you're worth it. And that second part is, of course, the key to the universe. Why are you worth more money? Before you start negotiating, before you even think about that, make sure you do a lot of research. One thing that you're trying to find out is, does this company even negotiate? State agencies are notorious for not being very free with negotiation options. Some agencies will negotiate, some will not. Everybody I have ever sent to the Legislative Budget Board for a job has been able to negotiate the very highest end of that salary range. But there are some agencies that are reluctant. Even sometimes when you apply to a state agency where there is a range given, and you think, gosh, it's so little money, but if I could get that top end of that range, I think I could take the job. And you go in there trying to negotiate the top end of the range, and they say, oh, that's really the classification range. No, we start everybody down here. And then as you gain seniority, you can work up to that. So sometimes it's misleading. Do some research. Is this a company that negotiates or not? One time, I don't know if this is still true, this was many years ago, we had a speaker from Active Power. And he did talk a little bit about salary. And one of the things that he said was, we always ask in our interviews, what did you make on your last job? That is a figure that I'm telling you, Launchpad Job Club members would rather slit their throats than give that figure up. I don't know why they're so reluctant to do that. But we have had some speakers saying, never tell that. It's none of their business. It's a different kind of job. If you were there for 20 years, it doesn't matter what you made in your last job. Never give that figure up. Some companies say they won't go beyond the screening interview unless they know that. And so, at any rate, we'll talk a little bit about that dilemma. Do you give it up or do you not give it up? Active Power, I've never heard another company that has had this opinion, but they said, we always ask the question, it means nothing to us, we know what we're going to pay, we do not negotiate, we ask the question just as a sign of trust. And it's like, what? If you're not going to use it to make me an offer, why do you need to know that information? What do you mean a sign of trust? It's a weird argument that I have never understood, but that's the point. Every company is a little bit different. So how can you tell whether they're the kind of company that negotiates or whether they're not? Well, you have to do some research. Glassdoor might be helpful. Go into Glassdoor, put that company name in. Glassdoor is a wiki site. People can add information. You can go into Glassdoor and put in information about companies where you have worked in the past. And it's anonymous. You create a pseudonym, and you can talk about, these are the really good things about the company. If you want to say something that you felt was not great about the company, you can do it. I encourage you not to burn bridges, however. Be very careful about ever going online and saying something negative about another company. But saying good positive things, or saying, you know, they were challenged because of you know, whatever, they were changing into a new product line and they didn't really have a lot of expertise in that line, or whatever you want to say. But they also, sometimes you can find out about salary. One company I looked up, somebody said he was successful in negotiating 15% more than the salary that was initially offered. Well, that's great information. You know they negotiate, you know what the potential is for salary negotiation. I've looked up another company, and somebody said he had tried to negotiate for more money and was unsuccessful. He was, however, able to negotiate flex time, so he felt that as though he had come out ahead for that reason. So Glassdoor might be good. Another resource for you is to go into LinkedIn and see if you can connect with somebody, do an advanced search for somebody who worked at that company, in that department or whatever, but at least at that company in the past. You probably don't want to talk to somebody who is currently working there. It's a little invasive. They may not feel comfortable talking to you about that information, but somebody in the past might be willing to give that up. So you might be able to do that as well. Do some research. Does the company even negotiate? Is there an opportunity there? Research the labor market. How viable is your skill set? Are you one of millions? And how do you find that out? You go into Indeed. You put in your skill set. Are there no jobs for you? Is there one job for you? Are you in demand? As we can tell from the recruiters that come here right now, it's almost as good as it was back in the dot-com boom days, where people with certain programming languages can get hired immediately, with or without a great deal of experience. Some other skill sets, however, are languishing because there's not a high demand for it. So obviously, if you're in a high demand occupation, you can command a higher a higher salary. You're in a much better position to negotiate than if you're one of millions. So think about that a little bit. Analyze your skill set. How do you compare to somebody else? So are your skills in demand? How much competition do you have? Do you bring some kind of value added? So if you've got linguistic skills, for example, or you've got certifications that somebody might not have, are you somebody like Kimberly who can say, yes, I can do this, I can do this job, and 20 others as well? You know, how do you compare? Do you have anything that you can bring to the table? And then, what is the going rate for your particular job? What's going on these days? Somebody who has spent the last 20 years working at a big high-tech company, it's possible that you're going to be able to command a similar salary or even a slightly better salary at another company, but you have to think about that a little bit. After 20 years, you were ingrained in the way that that company did business. Are you going to have to take a bit of a step back down the financial ladder in order to get your foot in the door in another company? We've had some people with who've received very competitive salaries after a long time at one company. Joe Akins was 28 years, I think, with AMD and got a job with GM, making a very comparable salary and doing something that was a bit of a stretch for him skill-wise. So we have some people that are able to do it. So do some research. What is the going salary rate? Salary.com is a good place to look, just because that website is, they've been in the compensation analysis business for a long time, and they'll give you eventually, what do you call it? A bell curve. Geez, this is your future, right here, right here. A bell curve that'll say, here's the low salary in this town for this job at this time. Here's the median salary. This is the high salary, and you can kind of rank yourself in there. Indeed, going to the advanced job search of Indeed.com, they now have a salary analysis service that they provide in there.
Yes, a CEO that I tremendously respect also told me that you can do a general thing on Glassdoor, and that's what he's using in terms of salary ranges as well.
Okay, so if you didn't hear that in the back, she said a CEO whom she respects said that the way he figures out what would be a competitive salary to offer is he goes into Glassdoor. You can do a generic search on what are the going salaries. Yeah, so you give a zip code and a position, and here's the salary range. So there's a third way to figure out what is out there today. Those of you who have moved here from other places, that's another good way to just kind of determine it. So anyway, payscale.com, salaryfinder.com, there are lots of compensation sites. We used to have, as part of Launchpad, she was a speaker a couple times, and she also used to volunteer down at the workforce office. She taught my classes with me, and which was so much fun. She was a corporate high-tech recruiter with 20 years in Silicon Valley, looking for a job here, but also she said she could go 3 or 4 years without a job if she wanted to, because she had made so much money in the past, California dollars. And when she lost her job, her daughter was grown and out of the nest, and so she didn't really have to maintain a big household here. She put all of her furniture in storage and moved in with a friend of hers. So her expenses were minimal, and while she was looking for a job here, so it was pretty smart that she was doing that, even though she didn't have to. But she did it. So anyway, she is an expert on compensation, and she on her signature line of her email, she says, "Follow me on Twitter, where I tweet about salary negotiation, compensation, executive recruiting, and all things job search." And so if I find somebody who has a salary negotiation dilemma, I always say just reach out to her. She's very helpful. She's open to people from Austin. She knows I stick people onto her all the time. Follow her on connect with her on LinkedIn and follow her on Twitter. Her name is Cheryl, S-H-E-R-Y-L, Fries, F-R-I-E-S-Z. And so connect with her on LinkedIn. She's currently back in California as a recruiter, but she has a fondness in her heart for folks in Austin. Her Twitter handle, I believe, is sfries. So again, F-R-I-E-S-Z. And anyway, so she has access to some of the compensation registers or whatever. The very first speaker we ever had come to Launchpad Job Club was somebody from AMD who talked about salary negotiation from both sides of the desk, and said that AMD, and as I have found out since then, all big companies generally subscribe to a service that is a compensation analysis service. They gather data on compensation all over the country, and they periodically will send posts to their subscribers as to this is the current target salary for every single job in your industry. So the current target salary for a clean room technician is this, and for an ASIC designer is that, and so forth and so on. It was AMD's policy that they would negotiate 20% below the target to 20% above the target. They said they would never go higher than 20% above the target. That gives them, puts them in a pay equity dilemma, which he said is a management nightmare where you are paying somebody new significantly more than somebody who's been doing that job for a long time. So if they've offered somebody the high end of the salary and they really can't, there is no more money on the table, and they really want this person and they've got a better offer somewhere else, they will try to dig into another bucket and up the sign-on bonus or the production bonus or more benefits in this way or something like that. But on occasion, I used to, because Cheryl still had access to the Radford directory, and so every once in a while I would contact her, or I would try to contact the AMD guy and say, can you tell me what is the current target salary in Austin for this? So, so sometimes that kind of information is helpful as well. So what is the going rate? Remember above all, and this is what the AMD guy said, and I've heard it many, many other places, almost always when an offer is made, there is money on the table. You have to ask for it, and most importantly, you have to explain why you're worth it. It cannot be based on why you need it. Nobody cares. Listen, I gotta have more money. I got a pickup payment. I got a wife to support. I got a high maintenance girlfriend. I got 5 kids in 7 states. I got a big old hungry dog. I gotta have more money. Nobody cares what you need. They only care, why are you worth it to me? Why are you worth it to me? All right. The 60 Seconds in Your Hired book, and by the way, that book is a rather old book. The updated version was published in 2008. I'm sure it's in the library. You don't have to buy it. It's got lots of good information, but really, I'm sure it's out there for you all over the place. That book provides a 10-point strategy that we'll go over a little bit. When you are negotiating, you have got to be confident. You cannot be wussy when you're trying to say, this is what I can do for you. If you don't, if you've got to, what is that going to take? Booze? I don't know. Something. You've got to come across confidently in a negotiation. And that means that you probably want to practice this on some negotiations that you don't care about that much. You might start with bedtime with a 3-year-old. Work your way up to salary with a CEO, Okay. But you have to stand your ground. You have to be strong. The AMD guy is now working in New York for a spin-off company from AMD called Global Foundries. And he talked about a woman that they were interested in hiring. She had a great deal of semiconductor experience in Pennsylvania, most of which was as a secretary. And she'd been working her way through school. Working her way through school, taking a class or two a semester while she worked for the semiconductor fab. And so you can imagine how many years it took for her to reach that. And she finally got her bachelor's degree, and at that point they bumped her up to a higher position. She had been at that position for 2 years when she applied for the job with Global Foundries. And on their application, they asked 2 questions about salary. One is, what are you currently making? She said $75,000, and they said, what do you hope to make from us? And she put negotiable. And so they interviewed her, they liked her, they made her an offer. They said, we'll pay you $80,000 a year, plus we'll give you a $15,000 relocation package. And she said, I thought it would be 100. And they said, that was her negotiation. I thought it would be 100. And they said, you did? Why did you think it would be 100? She said, I don't know, I thought it would be 100. And they said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll give you $85,000 a year. So she just negotiated a $5,000 raise. They said, we'll give you $85,000 a year, and we'll give you a $15,000 reload package. So combined, that is 100. And she said, I thought the salary would be 100. And they said, well, it isn't. It's 85. Take it or leave it. And she turned it down. And he said, I don't know what happened to negotiable. And I said, well, if she had negotiated, if she had said, let me explain to you why I feel I'm worth $100,000 to Global Foundries, would you have given it to her? He said, maybe. If her argument were compelling. You know, she didn't say anything. You have to believe that you're worth $100,000. If you're going to ask for that, you've got to look them in the eye. You have to look them in the eye and you say, let me explain to you why I feel I'm worth this. And they might not buy it. They might say no. But at least you've expressed yourself and you've got confidence in your product. We have a job club member who is the boyfriend. He's working now, but he is the boyfriend of a woman that I have been trying to get to come speak to Launchpad. She won't do it. She won't even answer my emails. But we're first degree connected on LinkedIn because she's a recruiter. And recruiters almost always will accept your invitations. But here's how I heard her story from her boyfriend. She had been a recruiter for about a year at HomeAway, one of the best companies to work for in Austin. And she felt that she deserved a raise. And so she did what we should all do. You feel you deserve more money. She went to her boss with a presentation of some sort, and she said, let me just explain to you what I've done for the company in the past year. I've sourced all of these technical people. I've screened them. I've interviewed them. I've onboarded them. They're all doing well. I feel that I deserve a raise. And I feel that it should be in the area of this. And he said something like, I feel you're paid exactly what you're worth. So not only was it no, it was snarky. And she got all bent out of shape and went home and was fussing and fuming to her boyfriend. And he said, look, I cannot help you. If you feel that you need more money, go get a job that pays you more money. And at that time, timing could not have been better. Google had just moved to town. They were trying to hire 50 recruiters. And so she applied. She found on LinkedIn who the hiring manager was. She reached out to that person. They had a meeting. He adored her, hired her 85% more than she had been making at HomeAway. That's Google. There was an article in the Business Journal or the Chronicle or something like that targeting tech companies that said, how are you going to protect your talent from leaving you and going to Google because they pay so much more than other companies. And so you better come up with some really good snacks because they're hunting. So anyway, I looked her up. She stayed with Google about a year. Recruiters, they get away with job hopping like crazy if you're really good at what you do. And she stayed there about a year, and now she has left them and she's gone to Amazon Web Services. And I have another recruiter that I was connected to at Apple who has done the same thing. He's at Amazon Web Services, so I'll bet you now Google is feeling the pressure from Amazon. And don't you know that Amazon, just to stick it to Google, they want to steal their people. And that is a leverage point. Don't you know that AMD probably would pay more to steal somebody from Intel and vice versa? So if you want to make more money, try to go to the chief competitor of where you've been, and I don't know. Think about it. I hate to tell you to be mean, but they like that. Yeah, Christy. Yeah, and I was kind of non-competes. Depending on what kind of work you're in, sometimes there is a non-compete. Sometimes it doesn't kick in unless you try to steal the business of a company that you've left, or give up the secrets or the proprietary information or all of that stuff. You obviously can't do that. But there have been some very high-profile people who have left one company and gone to a competitor, and the company, sometimes the non-competes hold up and sometimes they don't, because it's just the nature of the industry. So yeah, but if you sign something, sometimes the non-compete is a big deal. So be confident, solid eye contact. You have got to look them in the eye when you tell them that you've got the goods. All right, focus on the employer's needs. Stress based on the job description and what you know about the company, here's your pain points. Here's what I can do to help you solve those problems. I know you need people in this field. This is what I'm prepared to bring. They're going to pay plenty to get their problem solved. So analyze that. Find out what their pain points are, and make a case for yourself on how you can help them with those problems. That's got to be worth something. Use a negotiation. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing about that. What you can contribute. Like you might say, since I'm already considered to be an expert in the software that you use, there's not going to be a learning curve on that. I'm going to be able to hit the ground running. You're not going to have to worry about that. That should be worth some money to you. What is it that you bring? What is your value added? One of our people back after 9/11, I think, so there was nobody negotiating back then. Everything had fallen off the table. But we had a girl who negotiated more money. She had come from Sematech, and she said, I have my Rolodex. And for those of you who don't know what a Rolodex is, it's kind of a paper database. But anyway, she said, I have contact information to the executives of every, high-tech company in the world. I can pick up the phone and call those people, and that accessibility ought to be worth something to you. And they agreed, and they paid her more money for that. So what is the dowry that you bring to this job? Is there anything you can come up with that you can talk about that would make you more marketable than somebody else, more attractive? Use a negotiation lead-in statement. So when they make you the offer, always express gratitude and enthusiasm. I'm very excited about this opportunity. I can't wait to get started. The salary seems a bit low for this job. Is there some wiggle room in that salary? Is that negotiable at all? Or say something like, the salary is much lower than I expected, considering what the skills and the experience that I bring to the table. And then stop. Don't say another word. Now the ball's in their court, right? They have to come up with something. Just stop. So at any rate, think about that. What are you going to say? And having a little script is helpful. If you decide to buy that book about, I think I can make you rich or whatever, I'm going to make you rich, baby. Whatever that book is, he has a lot of scripts. I may just buy that and copy them all for you. We'll see. Negotiate to get money up front if possible, rather than saying, how soon would I be reevaluated, what can I expect at that point. Sometimes you negotiate for money in the future, and then when that time comes, they're like, I'm sorry, I know we said that, but our revenue stream is just weak right now. We're not going to be able to do that. And it's like, I have a contract. Well, I know, but we just don't have it. It's not going to happen. See if you can negotiate the salary up front, or the sign-on bonus or whatever up front if possible. Don't hesitate to give it a try. Every once in a while, you just can't. We had a rousing salary negotiation presentation one time from Charles Black, kind of a unforgettable recruiter, used to be the lead recruiter at Dell. And right after that presentation, one of our people, excuse me, was offered a job at Applied Materials. And it was a contract job, but he wanted to negotiate more money. He even called Charles up and said, tell me what to say, tell me what to say. I'm going to negotiate more money. And he tried, and they said, normally we would give you more money. We do negotiate on salaries. This particular project, however, we had a contract. We had to specify the salaries we were going to pay within that RFP. And so because of that, our hands are tied. We're not able to, not on this job. So another one, if you apply for another one, we might be able to, not on this job, do you still want it? And he said yes. So sometimes it just can't happen, but don't hesitate to try. Be generic and vague in the beginning. Be specific when it counts. This is according to them. When they initially ask you, what kind of money are you hoping to get from this position? Do not give a number. Delay that conversation as long as you possibly can. And it's easy at first. You just say, there's no way I could possibly answer that because I don't know enough about the job. So if we could just back burner that conversation and talk a little bit more about the details of the job, the responsibilities and so forth, I'm happy to revisit it later. So, you know, this often happens in a screening interview or something. So they tell you about the job and you're asking them questions, they're asking you questions. And if they feel that you're a good fit and they should move you forward in the process, then they're going to come back. Very often it is the responsibility of that recruiter during a screening interview to find that information out. They're not supposed to move you forward unless they know you can do the job, you've got the background they're looking for, and your salary expectations are close enough in line with what they're going to offer that it's not going to be a waste of the hiring manager's time. So very often that is their assignment, and they've got to take back something. So, but you don't ever want to give them something really specific. So let's say that they come back, they revisit it, and they say, okay, now you know as much about the job as we do. What kind of money are you looking for? I imagine you have a range for this position. What is the range? And sometimes they'll tell you that, and they'll say, well, we're looking in the $80,000 to $100,000 range or whatever. And if you were hoping to get 60, well, this is great. And say, and just control your enthusiasm and say, yeah, I think I could do that. All right, I would like to move forward in the process. Don't kiss them. None of that. No happy dance at that point. Okay, be cool. All right. So very often they will tell you we're looking at something in this range, and if they say no. We need you to tell us. In the first place, you don't like that answer, so that might be telling you a little bit about, do I really want to work for this company? But then you can perhaps say, well, I've done a great deal of research about this, and it seems as though the industry standard right now is this range, and make it be a little bit high maybe, but they're not going to ask you where you did your research. The industry range is in this ballpark. Is that consistent with the range that the company has in mind? And so you're still not giving a figure. You're not saying where within that range you feel you belong. But you're letting them know that you're not going to be able to be taken advantage of. And so, at any rate, so you can see if that goes. And then if they say, we need a specific figure, and say, well, that's impossible. I mean, I've got all the qualifications you're looking for, plus these 3 certifications. I would feel that I'm qualified at the top end of the range, but I have no idea because I don't know enough details about the jobs. There's no way I could possibly be more specific. So you just want to move on in the process. Don't forget that in some cases the perks are so good, the compensation package is so good that you're willing to take a bit of a step back with the salary in order to get that. That's why so many tech people come to work for the state, because you have a pension, you have 14 paid holidays, you have relatively low stress job, you're vested relatively quickly within the system, and you go home at 5 o'clock and you have a life. And lots of times people are willing to take a lower pay because it's a quality of life thing, it's a life balance thing. So sometimes that's important to consider as well. Practice, practice, practice. Do not make the salary negotiation of your dream job the first time you ever have this conversation. Practice. We do mock interview practice down at the workforce office on Thursdays from 1:30 to 4:30, and we could just as easily try to practice salary negotiation and try to give you a hard time on that and let you get comfortable with the conversation. So you can practice with other people. Practice, if you have a SWAT team, we always tell you create a team. That's a great thing to do in your SWAT team meetings, is practice salary negotiation. They're not going to pay you anything anyway, so, practice. Understand what is, do the math. How low are you able to go before you just have to say, no, I can't, it's ridiculous, it's impossible, I can't possibly do that. So understand what your bottom line is. And once you have negotiated, almost all of you are white collar kinds of folks where you will get some kind of an offer in writing. And And so you're taking good notes during the salary negotiation. You're taking notes on how much vacation am I going to get, and you know, how soon will I be evaluated, and how am I going to be evaluated? What constitutes good performance and all of that. So you're taking good notes, and then you want all of that in writing. And if you get an offer, they FedEx you something, you go over that very carefully. Sometimes the things that you've negotiated are missing. You want to be checking them off and make sure that everything is there. One time I had a client who was in sales, and he said that they said, we start with this base and this commission, and then within 6 months the commission bumps up to this, and then they negotiated a lot of other stuff in addition to all of that. And when he got his contract, everything else that they had negotiated was clearly listed on the contract. The only thing that wasn't there was that 6-month bump up. And he said, well, yeah, I figured that's, you know, he said that was standard, that everybody gets that, so I guess that's why they didn't put it in there. So he didn't say anything. And when 6 months came along, he said, where's my bump up on my salary? And they said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, you said 6 months, it bumps up to this amount. He said, I've got it here in my notes. We never said that. So if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So make sure you do that. Brenda?
I had a contract where they had changed, they did not have a salary that we had agreed on. And I was face to face, like getting ready to start, they wanted me to sign it right there. And I said, excuse me, but this is not the salary. And the guy kind of winced, and I said, we agreed on this salary, and so I need you to change that before I sign it. So that's one of the things too, that if you don't feel comfortable standing up for what you agreed on, I mean, that gave me a sign of how it was going to be treated going in.
That's right. So what she said, if you didn't hear it in the back, was she had a contract and the salary was wrong. It was not what they had agreed to, and she pointed that out to him and said, this is not the agreed to salary. They wanted her to sign it and start right then. So there was some pressure about that. And she said, you have to be willing to stand up to them, because otherwise they'll take advantage of you. You have to make sure that the contract is what you agreed to. One of our people had negotiated a lot of stuff, and it was a small company, probably not used to a written contract, and she didn't want to insult them by saying she didn't believe them unless it was in writing. So what she did was she sent the guy an email, and she said, just so we're both on the same page with all of this, let me just put down, my title will be this, these will be my responsibilities, I'll be in charge of all of this stuff, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and for that I will get this salary, this much vacation, whatever they had agreed to. And she said, I just want to make sure that we're all in agreement about all of this. And if you agree to that, if you'll write me back an email and agree to that. So she kind of did it for him, because he wasn't sophisticated enough to understand that that was an important thing to get it down. So just keep in mind that you want to get it in writing. And at any rate, if you do have an unusual situation, Amy Chu, one of our Launchpad members who recently started a job in San Diego, so moving from Texas to California, where housing is so much more expensive and so forth, she wasn't sure how she should deal with the negotiation, so I got her in touch with Cheryl, and she was going to walk her through that. The fact that Cheryl's in California made that pretty easy, so she was able to negotiate a really good package, and so feel free to do that.